My in-laws blamed me for taking their son away, demanded we support their 8-year-old daughter and buy her a car. But when I confronted them and discovered it was all a manipulative test, the truth destroyed them. I'm 25 years old. My name is Kimberly. I work in digital marketing, and I need to tell this story. Because I'm literally shaking as I write this. And I need someone to tell me if I'm crazy, or if what happened 2 weeks ago was as ridiculous as I think it was. 2 years ago, I was offered an amazing job. You know, one of those life-changing ones, with a salary that tripled what I was making. And the thing is, it was 1,200 miles away from where Eric and I were living. Eric is my husband. He's 26, works from home as a graphic designer, and when I told him about the offer, his reaction was like, obviously yes, when are we moving? Without even thinking twice about it. That should have given me the first clue that his family wasn't going to take it so well. But at that moment, I was just thinking about how lucky I was to have a husband who supported me like that, you know? What I didn't expect, and I swear I didn't see it coming at all, was that Eric's family would take it as a personal betrayal. Like when we told them we were moving, his mom, Virginia, like 50-something years old, I'm not exactly sure, went quiet for a long, uncomfortable while, and then just said, well, I guess you've already made your decision. With that tone that basically screams, I'm angry, but I'm going to pretend I'm not. His dad, Lawrence, who's 53, didn't even look us in the eye for the rest of dinner. And his sister, Jasmine, who was like 16 at the time, started crying, saying Eric was abandoning her, which seemed super dramatic to me, but whatever. She's a teenager. I guess that's how they are. The first few months after the move were weird. Virginia would call us constantly, but the conversations always ended with her saying things like, it must be nice to be so successful that you don't need your family anymore. Or, I hope that job is worth it when you're alone at Christmas. Eric tried to keep the peace. He'd talk to them every week, send them pictures of our new apartment, but I could see it, hurt him, that they were treating him like this. Lawrence basically stopped answering Eric's calls completely, like ghosted his own son for 6 months, and when he finally responded, it was just to say he was too busy to talk. Busy with what? I have no idea. Because the man worked at a bank and had always had normal hours, but whatever. The truth is, I felt guilty. You know? Like Eric had left his family for my career, and even though he told me not to worry, that it had been both our decision, I could see how it affected him when his mom would call just to make him feel bad. My parents, Anthony and Brenda, were the only ones who supported us from the beginning. My mom literally told me, honey, if you don't take advantage of this opportunity, you're going to regret it your whole life. And your husband is supporting you because he loves you. Don't let anyone make you feel bad about it. And she was right. But still the guilt was there, in the background, all the time. Fast forward to 6 months ago. Jasmine, who was already 18 and had just finished high school, suddenly decided she wanted to go to college near where we lived. Virginia called us, all sweet and friendly, which should have been a giant red flag, looking back, saying it would be so nice for Jasmine to be close to her big brother, that she missed Eric so much, and asking if we'd mind if she stayed with us just for a semester while she adjusted. Eric was excited, like genuinely happy to be able to reconnect with his sister. And I thought, okay, 6 months isn't that long. I can deal with this. Plus maybe this way his family will stop hating us. So Jasmine moved in with us, and at first everything seemed fine. Like, she was a bit messy, but nothing terrible. She'd go out with her classmates, go to her classes, all normal. But after like a month, the problem started. She'd come home at 3 or 4 inches the morning, literally drunk, stumbling into everything, waking us up, and when Eric would say something, she'd just laugh and say, relax bro, I'm just living my college life. She'd leave dirty dishes all over the house, her clothes thrown around the living room, and when I'd ask her to pick up her stuff, she'd look at me like I was the crazy one and say, oh, Kimberly, don't be so uptight, I'll do it later. What drove me crazy was that she didn't have a job. I asked her like in the 2nd month if she'd thought about looking for something part-time, you know, so she'd have her own money and work experience, and she told me her parents gave her an allowance, and she needed to focus on her studies. Okay, fine, but her studies consisted of going to class 3 times a week and the rest of the time being in her room watching Netflix or going out with her friends. And she didn't pay rent, obviously, because Virginia had told us it was just temporary and it would be cruel to charge her own sister. Eric agreed with that, and I didn't want to be the bad guy. So I said okay. But inside I was thinking, seriously? And then came the moment that basically destroyed everything. One day, Jasmine came down to the kitchen, where Eric and I were having breakfast on a Saturday, sat down all casual, and said, "I need you guys to buy me a car." Just like that. Like nothing. Like she was asking us to pass the salt. Eric just stared at her like, "What?" And she explained that taking the bus to college was super inconvenient, that all her friends had cars, and that she needed one to get around. I told her, "Jasmine, cars cost thousands of dollars. We can't just buy you one." And she rolled her eyes and said, "It doesn't have to be new, just something that works." Eric tried to reason with her, explained to her that we had our own expenses, that we had worked and saved to buy our cars, and that she could do the same. And here comes the part I still can't believe. Jasmine took out her phone, called Virginia, and literally put it on speaker right there on the table. She told her mom, crying, acting, clearly, that we had told her we weren't going to help her with anything and that we were selfish. Virginia, without even asking for our side of the story, started yelling at Eric over the phone, saying how could he possibly abandon his sister, that they had done so much for us, and that the least we could do was help Jasmine. She hung up before Eric could explain anything. I was in shock, like literally with my mouth open, and Eric was pale, staring at his phone like he couldn't process what had just happened. Jasmine got up, went to her room like nothing happened, and we were left sitting there not knowing what to do. Eric tried calling his mom back, but she didn't answer. He sent her like 10 messages explaining the situation and nothing. Total silence. 2 days later. 2 days. Lawrence called us. And that's where things got completely surreal. He told us, with that serious voice dads use when they're about to tell you something important, that he had decided to retire early from work, that he was no longer going to be able to help Jasmine financially like before, and that now it was Eric's responsibility, as the older brother, to take care of her. He literally told him, "It's your turn to be the man of the family and take care of your sister. She needs you and you can't fail her." Eric asked him when he had decided to retire and why he hadn't told us anything before, and Lawrence just said these were adult decisions he didn't have to explain to anyone. When he hung up, Eric was like wrecked, sweating, shaking, and I was furious, because this didn't make sense. Lawrence was 53 years old, he wasn't at retirement age, and suddenly he expected us, who had just started our careers, to completely take care of Jasmine, who wasn't even trying to be independent. I told Eric, "This is manipulation. This is a test. They're seeing how far they can push us." And he knew I was right, but didn't know what to do, because it was his family. You know what I mean? That night, Jasmine came home expecting an answer about the car. Eric told her we couldn't buy it for her, that we understood it was inconvenient to use the bus, but that she could look for a part-time job and save for one, and that we could lend her some money for the down payment if she saved the rest. Jasmine went hysterical, screaming that we were horrible, that her family had always known I was a bad influence on Eric, that since we got married, he had changed and didn't care about his family anymore. Basically the whole dramatic speech you can imagine. And then she said something that chilled my blood. She said, "My parents were coming anyway. We'll see what they have to say about this." Can you believe it? Virginia and Lawrence drove 1,200 miles, literally almost 20 hours on the road, to come confront us in person. They arrived the next afternoon, without saying exactly what time. And when they knocked on the door, I almost threw up from stress. They walked into the house without even saying hello. Virginia looked me up and down with that contempt that makes you feel 2 inches tall, and Lawrence went straight to talk to Eric as if I didn't even exist. The conversation was basically an intervention, but backwards, like as if Eric was the one doing something wrong. Virginia started by telling me, not Eric, me specifically, that I was the reason Eric had become selfish and materialistic. She said that before he met me, he always put his family first, that he was a wonderful son, and that I had alienated him from them with my ambitions and my career. Lawrence agreed, saying that buying Jasmine a car was the least we could do after they had supported us so much in our marriage, which is ironic because they literally opposed our wedding for 2 years and only went because Eric's parents convinced them. I tried to defend myself, told them it wasn't fair for them to expect us to support Jasmine when she was perfectly capable of working, and that Lawrence's retirement thing was clearly an excuse. Virginia interrupted me, raised her voice, and said, "How dare you question my husband's decisions? Who do you think you are?" Jasmine was sitting on the couch, looking at me with a little smile, like enjoying the whole show. and I felt like my head was going to explode with rage. Eric, who up until that moment had been quiet, finally spoke. He told his parents that it was enough, that they weren't going to come to our house to disrespect us, and that the decision not to buy Jasmine a car was from both of us, not just mine. Virginia looked at him like he had slapped her and said, "Are you really choosing her over your own family?" Lawrence added that this was exactly the test they needed, that they wanted to see if Eric still valued his family or if I had already turned him into a stranger, and that clearly they had lost their son. That's when something in me broke. I told them to leave my house, that Jasmine had 1 week to find another place to live, and that I wasn't going to allow them to continue manipulating Eric and making him feel guilty for living his own life. Virginia called me selfish. Lawrence said I was going to regret it, and Jasmine started crying, saying she had nowhere to go. But I couldn't take it anymore. I literally pointed at the door and told them to leave. They left that night, to a hotel, I guess, and left Jasmine with us. The next few days were horrible. Jasmine wouldn't talk to me. Eric was devastated, feeling guilty, and I spent my time crying in the bathroom, wondering if I had ruined his relationship with his family forever. But Eric, and this is important, Eric supported me. He told me I was right, that his family had crossed a line, and that he wasn't going to allow them to treat me like that. A week later, just like I said, we told Jasmine she needed to leave. She called her parents crying, and Virginia and Lawrence came back, this time just to pick up her things. When they were packing, Virginia pulled me aside, grabbed my arm, not hard but like intimidating, and told me something I'll never forget. She told me, "One day Eric is going to wake up and realize he sacrificed his family for you, and when that happens, you're going to be alone, because we're not going to be there to pick up the pieces." She got in the car with Jasmine and Lawrence, and they left without saying goodbye to Eric. That night was one of the worst of my life. Eric was devastated, and I felt horrible, like I had really ruined everything. I kept hearing Virginia's words in my head, wondering if she was right, if someday Eric would blame me for driving away his family. I couldn't sleep, couldn't eat, just tossed and turned in bed thinking about everything that had happened. 2 days later, we got a call. From my parents. Apparently, Virginia and Lawrence had decided to go directly to Anthony and Brenda, hoping they would convince us we were wrong. My parents told me that Virginia had given them a whole story about how I had manipulated Eric and destroyed his family, and that they needed to make me see reason. My dad's reaction was basically, "You guys drive 1,200 miles to come to my house uninvited to talk bad about my daughter?" And he asked them to leave. My mom was more direct. She told them that if their daughter was 18 years old and couldn't pay for her own things, the problem wasn't Kimberly, but how they had raised Jasmine. I can't explain the relief I felt when my parents called to tell me this. It was like finally someone else saw how absurd the whole situation was, you know? My mom told me, "Honey, you didn't do anything wrong. You set healthy boundaries and it's okay to prioritize your marriage, and your mother-in-law is jealous that Eric chose you. It's that simple." My dad added that if Eric's parents wanted to play manipulation games, they'd see that our family wasn't going to participate in that. But here comes the plot twist that no one expected, not even me. Like a week after all this drama, Jasmine sent, "Tell me a message." I expected it to be to insult me or something. But no, it was a photo. A photo of her in front of a new apartment, keys in hand, all smiling, with a caption that said, "My parents finally bought me my place and my car. Thanks for nothing." She attached another photo of the car, a 2018 Honda Civic, in perfect condition. I just stared at the phone, unable to process what I was seeing. I showed Eric, and he couldn't believe it either. Lawrence, who supposedly had retired and had no money, had just bought Jasmine an apartment and a car. It had all been a lie. It had all been an elaborate test to see if Eric would choose his family over me. And when we failed their test, they just gave Jasmine everything she wanted anyway. Eric called his dad, finally got him to answer, and asked him directly if he had never actually retired. Lawrence, without any shame whatsoever, admitted that no, that it had been a strategy to see how committed Eric was to his family. He said that since Eric had chosen to be on his wife's side, they had decided that Jasmine deserved all their support, and that basically Eric was no longer part of the family. He hung up and blocked Eric's number. Since that day, we've blocked Virginia, Lawrence, and Jasmine from everything. Phone, social media, email, everything. It was Eric's decision, not mine, and I think that's important. He told me he had been thinking a lot about everything that happened, and that he realized his family had always been like this, manipulative and controlling, but he had never wanted to see it. He said the move had been the excuse they needed to show their true nature, and that if it hadn't been because of that, it would have been because of something else eventually. The last few months we've been better than ever. Honestly. We decided we want to start trying to have kids, and we're saving to eventually move closer to my parents, who have been incredible during all this. Eric is in therapy, processing the whole thing, with his family, and I'm also going to deal with the guilt I still feel sometimes, even though I rationally know I didn't do anything wrong. Last week, my mom came to visit us, brought us tamales and a cake she had made, and while we were having dinner, she asked me if I regretted anything. I told her the truth, that sometimes I wonder if I could have handled things differently, but that at the end of the day, I set boundaries that needed to exist, and that my marriage is stronger now because of it. Eric agreed, took my hand and said he had never felt more sure about us, and that's enough for now, I guess.